Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with green chicken chili. That's right, don't let that drab green color or questionable plating fool you. This chicken and white bean chili was incredibly delicious and surprisingly easy to make. And that this came out so good is no surprise, since it's based on one of my favorite all-time foods, Salsa Verde, which is basically chunks of pork stewed with tomatillos. So that's what inspired this. And by the way, just so everybody's clear, this is a green chili made with chicken, and not a chili made with green chicken. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with the aforementioned non-green chicken. And what I have here is about 3 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs, which generally comes with little bits of fat attached here and there. And you could, if you want, trim that off, but we're not going to. And I'll explain why in a second. But what we are going to do is season both sides generously with kosher salt, even though I'm only going to show you one side. The other side looked remarkably similar to this. And then what we'll do once our chicken thighs are seasoned is head over to the stove where I have a dry, non-stick skillet set over high heat. And we'll go ahead and place in our chicken thighs. And the reason we're going with a dry pan here is because as this chicken comes up to temperature, that fat we were talking about earlier is going to start to melt. And that's actually going to produce enough fat to brown this chicken in. And I use the term loosely, since we really don't have any skin here to get nice and brown and crisp. But you'll see after about 4 minutes on high, we should get some decent golden color. And I should mention I did this in 2 batches, since as you know when we brown things we generally don't like to crowd the pan. But anyway, we'll go ahead and brown those thighs off about 4 minutes per side. And once done, we'll transfer those into a bowl to cool. And once those do cool down to room temp, we'll go ahead and chop them up into whatever size pieces we want. And sure, if you want, you could cut up the chicken raw and brown it that way. But I think the texture and appearance is better if you do it this way. Plus, cutting up cooked chicken thighs is significantly more enjoyable than cutting up raw chicken thighs. So we'll go ahead and wait for that chicken to cool down. And while we do, we'll move on to make our sauce, featuring the star of the show and massive time saver, a jar of what's sold as Salsa Verde. And this stuff goes by many names, but what we're looking for is a tomatillo-based salsa. And how you know is you're going to check the ingredients. And the first ingredient must be tomatillos, followed by probably onions and chilies. Or if it has a bunch of weird stuff in there, don't use it. And I'll give more info about this on the blog. So we'll go ahead and add one 24-ounce jar of that, followed by some kind of fire-roasted green chilies, which could be jarred or canned. Or in my case, I had a package of frozen hatch chilies, which I thawed. But that very popular canned variety at the market will work. And we'll go ahead and add that to the blender, along with a few cloves of peeled garlic, as well as one sliced up jalapeno pepper that I removed most but not all of the seeds and membranes. And we'll go ahead and finish up with a nice big handful of freshly picked cilantro. Stems and leaves, by the way. The stems taste exactly the same. And believe it or not, that's it. Once all that's in there, we'll head over and blend this up. And as usual, we'll start off on low and finish on high until the mixture is very smooth and extremely green. And that's it, our sauce is prepped. We will simply set that aside and move on to cutting up our chicken, which by now should be cool enough to handle. And what I'll do, using a cleaver and some tongs so I don't have to wash my hands before I move the camera, is cut this chicken up into some bite-sized pieces. And for me, I shoot for about 1-inch cubes. But literally any size will work, from finely diced to not cutting them at all. So you're going to have to decide what size to make yours. I mean, you are, after all, the Uncle Billy of your chili. But one thing to keep in mind, the smaller you cut it, the faster it's going to cook. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and cut up mine as shown. And the great thing about using a cleaver is it actually doubles as a bench scraper. It makes it really easy to transfer this back into the bowl. And then once that's set, we can head to the stove and finish this chili off. So we will transfer our cut chicken into the saucepan, along with any and all accumulated juices, which there should be a lot of. And speaking of rich, delicious, gelatinous juices, that's exactly why I use chicken thighs instead of chicken breasts for this. But yes, if you have to, breasts will work. And under protest, I will tell you how to do that in the blog post. But anyway, we'll add our chicken as well as our sauce, which is one of the most beautiful green colors you'll ever want to see. And oh, how I wish it would stay like that. But as you'll see, it doesn't, which is still okay. And then besides our sauce base, we'll also have to season this up with a whole bunch of ground cumin. I'm also going to toss in a spoon of chipotle pepper, because I'm tired of using cayenne. Plus, this has some nice smokiness to it. And yes, of course I'm kidding about the cayenne, but not about adding some freshly ground black pepper. And then 2 ingredients so secret, I had to blur the screen. Actually, I think the autofocus on my lens is broken. That was really some dried oregano and salt. But anyway, we'll go ahead and season that up, as well as rinse out our blender with a splash of water and add that. And we'll go ahead and stir all this together as well as set our heat to medium-high. And then from there, we will use our standard stewing technique, which means once it starts to bubble, we will back our heat down to medium-low. And we'll go ahead and simmer this relatively gently, stirring occasionally for about an hour or so, or until our chicken is tender, as of course determined by you. And again, that's going to depend on how big you cut it. And as I've already warned you, as this simmers, that beautiful bright green color is going to sort of turn into a more drab olive green. But while we'll lose a little of that vibrant color, the good news is all those vibrant tastes stay intact. So I let mine simmer for about an hour until my chicken was nice and tender. And I didn't guess, I tested it with a fork. And once we determine our chicken's ready, we will go ahead and add the last major ingredient, a couple cans of white beans that have been drained and rinsed. And we'll go ahead and stir those in. And basically as soon as those heat through, you can technically serve. But I generally like to let that simmer for at least 15 minutes or so, since those starches from the beans tend to thicken up the chili a little more. So that's what I did. And about 15 to 20 minutes later, I decided that was enough, and it was time to eat. But before that happens, of course we have to check our seasoning. And we're mostly checking for salt. But maybe you want it a little hotter, who knows? So check it out. And then assuming we're happy with the seasonings, we'll go ahead and grab a ladle and serve some of this up into a warm bowl. And right here you can get a great look at that final texture and what I think is the perfect thickness. And by the way, if you want yours a little thinner, throw in some chicken stock. That's just you cooking. But anyway, we'll go ahead and ladle that up. And then we will add a big old dollop of sour cream. And then because we were feeling a little insecure about the color, we'll try to hide that with a few slices of avocado, which ironically just made that chili's color look less green. But anyway, I continued on by sprinkling over some pumpkin seeds, because they're green and also a common ingredient in Mexican cooking. Except after I did, and finished off with a sprig of cilantro and took some pictures, I decided I didn't like the seeds, since they looked like something somebody accidentally dropped on top. So I flicked those off and continued on, and felt a little better. And then I grabbed a spoon and dug in, and felt a lot better. Because this really is one of the most delicious chilies you'll ever want to taste. I mean, I really do love red and white chilies, but there's just something so deliciously different about this green sauce, and how well it works with those tender chunks of chicken, and of course white beans. And while this stuff really is amazing enough to eat all by itself, it's even more fantastic if you eat this with some cornbread, or better yet, some beautiful warm homemade corn tortillas, which I'm hoping to show you how to make very soon. So consider yourselves teased. But anyway, that's it, what I'm calling green chicken chili. Notwithstanding it having not the most gorgeous green color in the world, I really do love everything about this chili. Except please do yourself a favor and do not sprinkle over any pumpkin seeds, since above and beyond their appearance, the texture was all wrong. Right, it was almost like there was little undercooked beans in there, or some kind of little piece of chicken gristle. So do not, under any circumstances, add that to yours. But besides that, I really do hope you give this great chili a try soon. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.